All right, I want to welcome everyone to the World History 1 Intro to Geography. The whole point of this video is to have a resource that you can come back to anytime to touch up on your geography skills. As to be fair, most people don't enjoy geography, and it's a very important part of World History 1. So right here off the first slide, we're going to take a look at the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere. Here in the United States, we are obviously in the Western Hemisphere, but in this course, World History 1, only one unit takes place in the Western Hemisphere. That's the Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas. The rest of the unit is in the Eastern Hemisphere, which is Europe, Africa, Asia. So there's four shapes that I want to start off with, and this might seem kindergarten, but that's okay. Students really don't like geography in general because it's difficult, but we're going to kind of do this like Where's Waldo? So in the Eastern Hemisphere, there's four shapes that you can see up on the slide. First, there's the crazy duck. So you see the white duck right there in the middle. That's the Mediterranean Sea. So much of what we learn about in World History 1 takes place in the Mediterranean Sea, so it's a super important location that you need to know. Next, we have right by the Mediterranean Sea what I call the Nike tennis shoe. That's the Black Sea. Nike tennis shoes are coolest when they're black. So I have the little tennis shoe logo right there. That's the Black Sea. Then if you go towards the middle, that's the diamond. That is India. India is a subcontinent because physical barriers block it from the rest of Asia, and we'll get more into that in a minute. But it's a diamond shape because there are rivers and mountains that block it off from the north, and then it extends down into the Indian Ocean. Now all the way over to the right, you have Japan, and you see a flying saucer. So what I always tell the students, it's a J for Japan. And the reason is because the aliens, when they came here millions of years ago, they said, hey, that's a J, we'll call it Japan. Yeah, I think you get it that I'm not serious, but have a little fun sometimes helps. Okay, so this slide is zoomed in and we're looking at the crazy duck, which is again, the Mediterranean Sea, the crazy duck, the Mediterranean Sea. And then right over to the east or to the right, we have the Black Sea or the Nike tennis shoe. So again, the crazy duck, the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, the Nike tennis shoe. Okay, so this is the Indian subcontinent, and I tend to call this the diamond because it is diamond shaped based on the physical barriers. So in a moment, the video is going to change and it's going to show you the physical barriers. But for now, notice how you have Asia. India is part of Asia, but again, it's a subcontinent. So this is how it changed. If you look to the right, you see that to the north of the subcontinent, there are the Hindu Kush Mountains, the Indus River, the Ganges River, and the Himalayas. Now these physical barriers protect India. So throughout history, India has not been invaded by foreign adversaries very often. Alexander the Great was one who was successful. His army came through the Hindu Kush Mountain Pass called the Khyber Pass. They crossed the Indus River and they fought the Indian army. However, because it was so difficult for them to do that, Alexander's army they decided, hey, we won, but you know what, we're rich, let's go back home. We don't need to do all this. So it discourages people from invading. So that's the big thing about India is the physical barriers isolate India, they protect it, and their culture hasn't changed that much over time through outside influences. Next, we have the J for Japan. As I joked about that earlier, the aliens named it Japan because of the J, but the reason it's important is you can find it. It's easy to find. And also, if you notice the arrow pointing, that leads to China. China influences Japan because of their close proximity. And China is one of the four oldest civilizations in the world, which we're going to get to in a moment. And that's very important because students are going to be able to identify the four oldest civilizations as well as a couple of others. So here's the four oldest civilizations or four earliest. You have Egypt, the Egyptian civilization, which is on the Nile River in Africa. Then to the east, you have Mesopotamia. That's close to the Arabian Peninsula. It's on the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, or actually in between. The word Mesopotamia means between two rivers in Greek. So then moving eastward again, you have the Indian civilization, which is on the Indus River in the beginning, and later it expands to the entire subcontinent. And then finally, all the way to the far east, you have the Chinese civilization. Again, you can see the J pointing over to where the Chinese civilization started on the Honghe River. So next we have two important later civilizations. First, we have the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians they're all around the Mediterranean Sea. So I always represent them by the crazy ducks, and later you'll see the Phoenician battle ducks, which is something I just do for fun to help people to remember. And next we have the Hebrews. They are the first people to worship one God. They're the first people to be monotheists. And then later Christianity and Islam come from Judaism. So next, the rivers are very important. So first you see the crazy duck, and then below that you have the Nile River. That's where the Egyptian civilization is located. Then you have a red little itty bitty river. That's the Jordan River. And I always say, Michael Jordan, he brews his own beer. So Michael Jordan, Jordan River, the Hebrews. Then you have the Euphrates and Tigris. That's where Mesopotamia is located. Then you see the Indus River, then the Ganges, then the Hung-He. So again, these are all rivers that you're going to need to know and be able to locate on a map. Now we have the Mediterranean basin. So when we get into ancient Greece, this is going to be important, and this extends into ancient Rome as well. So Greece and Rome are two of the biggest civilizations that we study in World History 1 because they influence the modern world so much more than, I don't want to say anything else, but there's just so many things here in America in particular that come from Greece and Rome. So looking at this map, the Mediterranean Sea, you're going to see the Italian peninsula highlighted in red, and then you're going to see the Greek or Balkan peninsula highlighted in blue. This is the division not only between Greece and Rome, but also between the Western world, which is to the left or to the western part of the map, and the Eastern world, which is to the right or the eastern part of the map. So knowing this whole Mediterranean basin and how these shapes fit in, very important. It's going to really help as we go. Okay, next, later in the second semester, we're going to be talking about a lot of locations relative to Africa. So across the top of Africa, you can see the crazy duck or the Mediterranean Sea. It's an easy way to remember. Europe is above the Mediterranean Sea, Africa is below. The very top of Africa is desert. That's the Sahara Desert. I have the camels up there. The Niger River is in the western part of Africa below the Sahara Desert, and then all the way to the south you see the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers. Then below the Black Sea, I've highlighted an area called the Arabian Peninsula. That's known as the Middle East. It's not part of Africa, but it's a shape that's very recognizable. It looks almost like one of those snow boots, like if you go snow skiing, how they're angled kind of funny. But that's a place we don't spend a lot of time with, but it is important. Now, another unit later in the year, second semester, that gives people trouble is a unit that deals with trade routes. Trade routes are super boring, right? I know, I get it. So I've tried to put together this so you're seeing it now, and you can always come back to it quickly rather than going through the whole unit again. So you're going to need to know specific trade routes. The Silk Road should be easy because you're going to hear about it several times. But then there's a couple vocabulary words that help. Trans equals across. So for example, if you ever heard of the car, the Trans Am, it's across America. It's a race. That's how it was developed. Maritime is relating to marine or the sea. So if you look where the camel is, Trans-Saharan trade routes, it's telling you those are trade routes that go across the Sahara Desert. Then you have maritime routes across the Indian Ocean. Maritime, dealing with the sea. There's a ship there. Over to the far east, you have the South China Sea trade routes. Then you have the Northern European links to the Black Sea, and then you have the Western European river trade. Now, most of these, again, if you know the Black Sea and you know what Northern Europe is, you can connect the dots. And when we get to the actual unit, those are the type of things we'll deal with. But just for now, having access to this a little bit quickly is going to help a lot, because now you can see these routes and say, oh, there they are. Okay, and the last one is, this is the only unit in its second semester that's in the Western Hemisphere. So we have the Aztec civilization highlighted in red. That is in central Mexico. Then we have the Mayan civilization, which is on what's called the Yucatan Peninsula. And then finally, the Inca civilization, which is high up in the mountains in South America. So all three of these are Western Hemisphere civilizations that we're going to be talking about second semester. But again, I want you to have this one place you can always come back to when it comes to geography. So to wrap this video up, I'm just going to put this basic map that I put up at the beginning. Once again, the 4 key shapes that if you can find these, you'll start to recognize things that are located close to them. But again, you are going to study this information in each unit. So you're going to see it repeatedly over and over. And that's one of the ways that I like to teach, is the more you see something, the more you become comfortable with it. So again, if you feel like you're not understanding the geography, you can always come back to this video. Remember, you can pause, you can rewind, you can watch it many times as you need to. So again, the Crazy Duck, the Nike tennis shoe, the diamond, and the J for Japan. Those are your 4 main shapes. If you keep those in mind, it's really going to help you out. But again, if you need to watch the video again, please do as much as you need to.